for an additional supervisor just for that swing shift. Currently, we have a part-time property evidence technician position that became vacant during this past year, and we're asking for that to become a full-time position so that we will have two full-time property evidence technicians. As we're growing, as we're doing more, making more arrests, we're getting more and more property coming into our property. And one person that's running it, it's getting overwhelming. So to help our staffing needs now and in the future, we're asking for that position to go to a full-time. Would be an additional $67,550. And the last position that we're asking for is a part-time quartermaster. One of the many hats that one of my lieutenants wears is quartermaster. So I have a lieutenant that's in charge of issuing equipment, and that's an expensive quartermaster because there's a lot of times that we have to come in on his days off, especially over our mass hiring the last few months. He's had to make sure that all the equipment's there, so he's putting in a lot of hours. So not only does it take it away from doing this on his days off, but he's also quartermaster. You got to have so much equipment ready for him when they start. We're asking for a part-time quartermaster to help alleviate that. And then the last thing I know that Steve mentioned, community development is going to ask for a GIS person, and from the police department's perspective, that's a great idea. All our district maps, all our gun-free zones, all our maps outside of our Kansas dispatch too are all out of date. We have no way of updating this. So a GIS person would be a great big help for the police department because we need those new addresses once the new streets come in to be added to the CAD system. We need to update our gun-free zones, our drug-free zones, our sex offenders, because you can't possess guns or drugs in a certain distance from a school. Well, we have maps, or we've had maps in the past that tell the officer if they make an arrest in this area, that's a drug-free zone. That's added enhancement to the charge. Right now, our maps are not accurate, so it's hard for us to figure out if they're in a drug-free zone or a gun-free zone. So we really need those maps updated to make sure that if somebody needs an enhanced charge, we have the ability to enhance that charge. Because we don't want drugs, we don't want guns around. So that was just an added point to kind of help him with that request. This is the 6-year staffing plan that the city has, and this was here before I got here. In 2021, we asked for 2 officers. They added 1. 2022, we added 3 officers. We asked for 3, got 3. 2023, last year, the plan was to add 2 officers, but we added 3. And in 2024, the plan was to add 2 more officers, and we're asking for 3 officers on sergeant to help keep over the road. And in the past, those were just vacancies added to our numbers, but I can put bodies in those positions now. This is where we're looking to go in the future. Our 10-district plan, the north, south, east, west, and central divisions. And each one of those, like I said, would be able to be divided in half. So we could have up to 10 different officers working in smaller districts, which means more driving neighborhoods, more visibility for the police department. All right. And then equipment this year. We're asking for 5 additional police vehicles. The department's growing. We have a need for adding patrol vehicles, CID detective vehicles. We are instituting a training sergeant position, so we're asking for 5 more additional police vehicles. When I took over the department, I realized that our criminal investigation, our detectives, were driving around in unmarked cars that had no radio and no lights. And since then, we've noticed that there are times when we have a major event where we have to use every asset that we have. We've had barricaded persons calls a couple of times where patrol elements are trying to deal with a barricaded person, and we've had to rely on CID to keep a perimeter set up around us. Well, we've had CID detectives pull up in their city cars, turn on the flashers, and stand up there to try to stop traffic from coming through. It's just not safe. Plus, if we have a major crime scene and we need our detectives out there, they need to have the ability to respond to an emergency. So last year we did install radios in all the CID vehicles. This year we're asking for a lighting package. Nothing fancy, just flip down lights or lights mounted in the dash. or on the back deck, just so to identify them as police officers. They have to respond to an emergency, or if we have to use them for emergency. We're also asking for some LiDARs, which are speed enforcement device, the lasers. Y'all probably, if you drive anywhere, you see somebody standing on the side of the road holding a little laser, a radar gun, a laser gun. They're very accurate. They're easier to prove in court. My previous department used them quite extensively. And to be honest, I think those would pay for themselves in no time. But they're more accurate than using just traditional radar systems. We're also asking for helmets for our tactical team. The helmets that we have are near the shelf life, the end of their shelf life. So we need to upgrade those. And with that comes the communications headsets that go in them, so that when they have those helmets on and they're doing their tactical entries, they can communicate with one another. The upgrade of our radio system, the current headsets they have will not be compatible with the new radio system once it's up and running. Our rifle optics, all our patrol rifles, the optics are at the end of their shelf life. So that's just asking to be a refresh. We've had several of them start to break down and not be usable anymore. So it's about time that they need to be redone, reordered. Modems. The modems are for the in-cars. Currently, in order for us to upload video, whether it's body cam video, in-car dash video, the car has to be on the parking lot. Well, sometimes it's not feasible to keep the car on the parking lot. If an officer is out driving his district and he's working, if he comes back inside, we have to leave the car running in the parking lot for it to upload directly to our servers in the parking lot. What we're looking to do is add LTE modems to the cars. We have a lot more video now with body cams being issued. And there's other things that run off different types of signals. There's companies that make modems that work off the LTE system, so that way they're constantly downloading as they're working. So a person can answer a call, complete the call, get back in the car, and go on to the next call. And then if we get something that we need to review that video, it's already on the server, and we can review it. There's been times where we have a car parked in the back parking lot for 3 hours running, just because we're trying to upload the videos. It's just not economical. And then the operations division is asking for a side-by-side for special events. We do events downtown where we'll shut down downtown streets. We have officers that are patrolling on foot. Well, if they're at one end of Lee Street and an incident occurs on the other end of Lee Street, their only option is to get in the car and drive all the way around the barricades or run the entire length of Lee Street. So they're looking for a side-by-side that they can keep inside the perimeter and be visible and be able to respond within those events. Also, there's been times where we've had major crime scenes that occur in muddy areas that are off-road that take special vehicles to get back and forth to. That would be used to transport people and equipment back and forth from those. We are looking at trying to lease those and see how much it would be to lease it versus purchase. So that was something new to us. And so here recently we've started talking to people about possibly leasing one instead of purchasing one. We're asking for a breach drone. And what a breach drone does is a very hardened drone that has the ability to fly through windows. Well, I guess towards the end of last year, we had a barricaded person over on the big street. And currently, in order to negotiate a peaceful resolution, officers have to get behind a ballistic shield, approach a house, take this phone that has a cord that's about a quarter mile long, throw it through the window, and then back off. But it exposes the officers that they approach the house. A breach drone has the ability to fly through the window, and that will give us eyes and ears inside the residence or wherever it needs to go. So if we think that somebody's inside with a weapon, we can fly it in there and look around inside. And if we see them, we can land the drone and talk to them through the drone. It's just technology is really making it, it's all about keeping the officers safe and not exposing them. And then we're also asking too for a different type of drone to increase our drone fleet. My previous department did not use drones, and I've just been amazed at the capabilities that drones do that help officers do their jobs every day. The department has one of the best drone units in the state. Every one of our pilots is FAA certified. It's above and beyond what normal department's drones programs are. and we're looking to expand it because it has been so successful, and we've used it so often in the past. We're looking to add more officers to it. You add more officers in order for them to be adequately respond to a scene. We're asking for our drones, so each officer can have their own drone. If they have to drive to the station to grab a drone to drive to the location of the incident, it's time that we might need later. And the last thing is the Bearcat. Part of, like I said, being the premier law enforcement agency in East Texas is to have all the equipment. I know that's a contentious item. Last year, at least one citizen came forward and talked about the cost and talked about how many potholes that would fix, how much, he's thinking quality of life. And I get that. I really do get that. But as police chief, it's my job to think about life itself and saving lives. And the uses of it are, to me, outweigh the cost of it. Because if you use it one time and it's successful, it's paid for itself. So, the Lanco Bearcat is an armored rescue vehicle. There are no offensive capabilities on it whatsoever. It's designed for the protection of citizens, officers, and even suspects. Lanco vehicles are used by more than 700 law enforcement, state and local agencies. They respond to active shooter scenarios, barricaded persons, response and rescue, and high-risk warrants. Some of the myths about the Bearcat is that it's a tank. Again, there are no offensive weapons anywhere on it. In fact, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, there are a lot of fire departments that purchase Bearcats because they're made to rescue people. They can go into natural disaster areas and not have to worry about taken away by a tornado, drive over most debris. It's designed solely for protection. It's based on a commercial Ford F-550 chassis. It's small enough to fit down most of our city streets. The weight is such that it will not tear up the city streets that it drives down, unlike the MRAP that we have to borrow from the Hunt County Sheriff's Office if we have barricaded persons. And it can be driven by anyone. So if an incident occurs right now, any officer at the department can jump in it and drive it to the scene and get there. So it helps your response time quicker. And it can be worked on by the city garage. You don't have to have special mechanics. You don't have to have training mechanics. Another myth is that it's just officers and their toys. This is a useful piece of equipment. It is not a toy. We don't plan on using it as a toy. Currently, when we serve high-risk warrants, we have to approach the houses and basically was can be called a taco truck. It's just an unarmored van. And so officers, as they make the approach and get there, they're exposed to every single search warrant that we've done in the past for narcotics. There's been weapons involved. We always find weapons at those houses. Drugs and guns are synonymous. And if someone is determined, they could do a lot of damage if they don't want to go to jail. So this is about getting our officers to the scene safely, getting up close safely. The barricaded person that we had last year, we had to borrow the Hunt County Sheriff's Office MRAP. The reason for that is because that person in that house, we don't know exactly in the house where they're at. They have fields of view all the way around. Our only choice, if we did not have something like this, is to set up a wide perimeter. And that cuts our response. So if they determine that they want to shoot their way out, no matter what exit, they get to pick the exit they go to. And then we have to react to that. The time last year, we parked the barricade of the MRAP right at the front door. And that's where the attack staged, inside that barricade, where they're free and clear from any fire. And they can make any kind of response, any direction they need to, right up against the house. Versus if they were at the perimeter far away, he comes out this way, now they've got to make adjustments and figure out a way to get around that to respond. And it puts officers and the citizens. And another myth is it's militarized. It's designed and built by civilians for law enforcement and fire services. The number of times that we could have used it since 2021, we've served 7 high-risk search warrants. We've done 24 operations supporting 2 barricaded high-risk suspect call-outs, and we've had 8 community engagement events. So those are the number of times for sure that we could have used it since 2021. As our staffing increases, we plan to be more proactive. The number of high-risk search warrants should go up, because there are certain areas that we really need to focus on. And in conclusion, not a day goes by where you don't see headlines from across the nation talks about how officers use a vehicle, either the Bearcat or a similar vehicle, to bring either barricaded persons, suicidal individuals, violent criminals to a peaceful conclusion, because it changes our tactics. We don't have to stand off out of their range to take action. We can get right up on top of them. And that kind of forces them to make some decisions. And it really gives us the ability to bring a lot of these to a successful conclusion where nobody's. Any questions?
Thank you. It's an excellent presentation. Any questions from the council?
I have a couple questions. Yes, sir. Sorry, I gotta turn this on. That's all right. All right.
So on the slide where you talked about proactive policing,
Yes, sir.
it seemed like the main thing that you called out there was traffic stops. I'm curious if that's when we talk about proactive policing, is that mostly what you think of, or are there other elements?
No, there's other elements to it. Traffic stops are a way to do certain, for instance, the Four Corners area. We know there's narcotics being sold there. Traffic stops give us the ability to stop people that we think are involved in that type of activity. It helps us to control that activity. But other proactive enforcement is when we have more people on the streets, they can drive the neighborhoods at night to deter burglars. They can drive the parking lots of businesses during the day to deter thefts. That's proactive policing. Community programs, getting word out about things that are happening, that's proactive policing.
If it's all right, I had one other question about the district map that you showed us. Are those districts balanced by population, or do you have size of your patrol crews balanced by population?
The current one?
Yeah.
This one?
Well, or the one you proposed, either way.
Well, some of them are generated by call load.
Okay.
Some of them are generated by geography. We know that, for instance, in the South, it's larger than all the other districts combined because there hasn't been as much growth there yet. But in the future, that's where most of the growth is going to happen. So that's going to have more attention.
Well, that was what I had in mind actually, because
Right.
especially between 69 and I-30, there's been a ton of that.
Right. And part of our future plans is dividing that into half. Because right now, the main areas for call load, we got the Lowe's, the Home Depot, the Walmart, the thefts, those type of crimes. That's the concentration of the South right now. But as the city grows and as we get more houses, we're going to have more staff coming.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Chief, think you said the growth is on the south part of town. It's going to explode. But the thing with that is, when you have to have a accuracy of making sure that all district is fundamentally protected.
Yes, sir. We're not going to leave any part of the city unprotected.
Right.
The new map that we have going takes all that into account. That's why we added the central district, and we're breaking up the northern districts into smaller areas.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's a very excellent presentation. Next up is Parks and Rec.
Mayor, Council, good evening. So in Parks and Recreation, our objective is to provide opportunities of relaxation, learning, and socialization to promote personal growth and improve the well-being of every citizen. So that's kind of the first thing we have to do with that is engage. And so this is kind of some analytics in terms of our database, website, and social media on what that looks like. So in terms of database,
we're up 75% in our reach, and those are new people within our database that have registered for an activity or moved to town and have inputted their name, created an account within our database. Males versus females, we've been real low on males in our database for the last 3 years. This year, we're up 118%. And so a lot of that is sports related or activity related. And so in terms of youth, we've got a lot of youth members coming up there to use Reese for day passes and gyms and youth membership. So that would attribute to that increase of 170%. And when you get into the website data in the red box, users, we were down 10% this year from 34,000 to 30,000, but our sessions were up. So that's a good thing. And the bounce rate at 49% was up, which means that they're looking at more than one page. So and with the minute and a half duration, that tells us that they're getting the information they're needing before they get off of it. From a marketing standpoint, our activity flyers and program flyers, we were up 36%. So we've made 853 flyers this year for all our different programs. And a lot of that is doubling that to make them bilingual, to really hit that market as well. And then social media posts, we've had over 1,000 posts this year on social media between our sports leagues and then our Parks and Rec. So social media, which is how we do the bulk of the interaction we get from the public is through Facebook, whether it's comments or sending us messages. But we've got 11,000 followers, so we're up 18%. Our reach went from 210,000 to 250,000 this year, so that's up 19%. And then our visits, we had over 57,000 people on our Facebook page, and then likes, we were down 19%. So, and where our followers live, we put the top 5 because it's a long list, but the numbers just go down from there. But 36% in Greenville, 4.5% in Caddo Mills, 3% in Quinlan, 2.5% in Lonoke, and 2.5% in Roy City. So the surrounding communities do rely on us to provide that service.
I didn't do it.
So what we're gonna be discussing today is we'll talk a little bit about our divisions, our staffing, projects, parkland dedication, our capital requests, and our budget highlights. So divisions, our department is split into 3 divisions. We have a recreation department, then we have our parks division, and then golf division. Staffing, here's kind of how we're structured in terms of we have a director, then managers, coordinators, specialists, and then technicians. And then our part-time employees are aides that work under them. And then in terms of, so we have 22 full-time employees currently. We have 9 part-time, and then we have 3 full-time openings and 3 part-time openings. So our recreation division, their primary function is special events, recreation activities, programs, athletics, and seniors. And just kind of looking at the analytics for recreation events this year, our events were up 52%, which is something that we really tried to strive hard to, our staff did, to add more events and programs for the community. And then our attendance is up 14%. Activities were up 77%. That's a little deceptive because we shifted 11 activities from Reese Davis. We haven't classified as Reese Davis programs. We shifted them to recreation activities to get them outside of Reese Davis. But we did go from 27 last year to 48 this year. And then attendance was up 23% there. And then Reese Davis, we had 89 programs scheduled last year. This year it's 61, but again, we shifted 11 of those. So any classes that we'll try anything. So any classes that we had on there that didn't make or we didn't have much attendance on, then we moved on to something else, try to find something to replace it. So, and our visitors, we had over 41,000 visitors at Reese Davis this year. So we're up 0.02%. Moving into our athletics. You know, our youth leagues, we were up 66%. We went from 18 leagues to 30, but really what that is taking our youth leagues and we added a select league component to that. Our program is mainly for recreation. So what we added was a select league where you sign your team up, as opposed to, it's a more of a competitive model as opposed to our combine coach load draft process that we use for the recreational aspect. Participants, we were down just 0.14, so we were actually down 2 participants from last year. Adult leagues stayed flat. We had 15 adult leagues, and then the attendance on that was up 3, so it actually went up 3. And then our teams, so teams for the year, we were down from 189 to 156. But what that is on the youth side, what our staff had to do, you know, when we're putting teams together on the youth, we want to make sure that we don't have a lot of forfeits. And so the more activities kids have, the more kids that don't come to games or whatever. So we've had to make the teams. We used to go 2 more than required, and now we're doing 3 to 4 more than required, just because we figured 2 are not going to each game. And then from a game standpoint, it went down, but that's contributed to the same thing, fewer teams, fewer games. Our parks division, so their main priorities are going to be all our recreation facilities and some city facilities, mowing, landscaping, especially events. They've really stepped up and helped us, been a lot more involved in a lot of our events. Right away, and then beautification. And so in the parks department, we have 9 parks that we maintain and take care of, or work with the contractors that maintain those neighborhood parks. So I think there's 2 main parks we still maintain. That's going to be Graham and the Sports Park. And then we have contractors that we contract to do the rest. We have 220 acres of park space. We have 124 acres of non-park space, and we have 140 acres of undeveloped park space. And a lot of that is going to be down here on the north side of town, Jones Park, that's Bill Betts Park. That's property we still own, still classified as a park, but we have to shred it. Downtown, we have staff that have gone through downtown and really tried to clean the curbs and really improve the appearance down there. Our city entrances, cemeteries, we contract that, but we maintain contact with those contractors and make sure we're all accountable. Projects, playground inspection, splash pad maintenance right now, that's splash pads are checked 3 times a day, chemical levels. So we do that 3 times a day, and then inspections are done daily. Golf division, so they're primarily responsible for customer service, sales, maintenance, and then memberships. At the golf course, this year our green fees were down about 4%. Our cart fees were down about 5%, which those typically will go hand in hand. Our weekday rounds were just down 1, so 3,236 this year. So weekend rounds were down 45%, which after looking at it, we did have a couple of weekends where our software computer wasn't working properly. And so I don't know that we were logging rounds the way we should have. So I feel like that's probably why that's such a significant number. Member rounds were up 3.5%, 2,505 member rounds this year. The total rounds were down 6%, but again, I think that's tied to that weekend round total. So moving on to the projects we've done this year. So this year we budgeted to do Austin Park, to pickleball courts, basketball courts, to resurface those and put up the glass backboards to really improve the amenities there. And we got that completed. That bridge was actually donated by the Henry Group, Roadrunner Bridges, and we actually got it installed last week, but that's the story trail at J. Park. And so we're working with the library, or with John, to get the story trails up so we can get those posts set. But the bridge turned out really nice. Shade structures on Orange Field, so that's the last field. Those were done and completed. And then all our bathroom updates, every year we go in and we make some restroom updates to try to improve those amenities. Projects we're currently working on, Oak Creek Phase 1, so the trail around Oak Creek Park. It should be starting this week, if not early next week. And then greens and tee boxes we're working on currently, which we've got it prepped, so all the waiting is for the item to go through tonight, and then we can start. Park lane dedication. So a little bit about that is its ordinance was passed in 2020. And the intent of it is to hold the developers accountable, whoever's placing the demand on the amenities, our existing amenities, help pay for that, the added demand. So, and then we have a city match to that, which is up to 1 cent on the tax rate of what the developers pay in each year. And then it's for the intent of development. So we can't use it for maintenance cost or anything like that. Parkland map, we're split into 4 districts. We use 34 and then 3069 right there, at least 3 to kind of separate that out. And so the way that works is if you build a house in District 1, the developer's money has to be spent in that district. The city match money goes into the opposite district, so either 3 or 4. It can be used either or on the opposite district. And that's just to make sure that we're still putting money into both sides. Our parkland fees and how they're kind of structured. Our dedication is figured 1 acre for every 54 dwellings. And then fee in lieu of land, we figure that on infill lots and undeveloped acreage. And then we have park fees, for a single family, park fees for $5.89 plus whatever your fee in lieu of land is. So I don't know that we have any of those fees that come in over 1,000 per household, typically around 80, 97. Our dedication totals to this point, which will be coming to you at the next meeting about the parkland projects. But 2021, we took in just right around $346,000. And then in 2021, about the same. So currently we have $788,000 that we've got that we're going to put into projects that we're making a presentation to you guys at the next meeting on, and what our plan is with that money in all our parks, where we can address some issues in all our parks. The current right now, you can already see we're already more at this point than we were the last 2 years in park fee. So getting into our proposed budget. So our capital request this year, restrooms, we put a big emphasis on that, especially J. Park. During the wintertime, we have to close those, completely winterize them, and that's a huge inconvenience for the park. Because Texas, in the winter, it's hit and miss. It may be 80 or it may be 18, depending on the day. So that's an inconvenience on our citizens, in terms of going to our park. So that would enclose that one, putting new restroom units in at Warren Park and Oak Creek Park. With us making the improvements at Oak Creek Park, it's going to put more people there. So it has I think a single unit there now, a single restroom there currently. Oak Creek Phase 2, so this would be finishing out the trail and connecting the outsides of the trail, adding a pavilion and a basketball court there. Cell replacements for the in-charge playground. UVs out there pretty strong, so it's looking a little faded. The 10-foot shredder would go on the new tractor we got last year. We have a 15-foot shredder currently, and what we want to do is take that 15-foot shredder, put it on the new 100-horse tractor, take a 10-foot shredder and put it on the 80-horse tractor, which has lost a little power with all the hours it's had on. It's still a good tractor. The party and skating floor is something that we've done at Reese Davis. It just lays on the gym floor, you rent skates, it's black light, glows in the dark, really cool thing. And it's something that we could rent out for birthday parties and charge people to come to, and something that for low, costs us $4,000 to rent. So, and we could do it more than one time a year. Solar lighting, is something we put in, and that would cover all the downtown parking lots. Light up the sports park basketball court in the back that doesn't currently have lights, and then J. parking lot at J. Park. And then we put in there for an operations specialist. And really, what this position would do is help us with our cemetery. We got into new cemetery software. It's being put in now, but they would be in there from the start to finish with that. And so that would help us have a second person to help manage all our social media, marketing, flyers, and our cemetery, the occupants of our cemetery. Input all those.
The occupants.
Yeah, you got to put them in. Yeah, I know. Yeah, sorry. Tenants, there you go. So yeah, and I think that number, it's a big number, but we got to implement. So that person would just kind of help facilitate our current operation. Our budget highlights for this year, the big thing we put in our budget is employee training and incentives. We currently have some incentives in there now where we, for sick time use, if you don't use any sick time, then you're in a drawing each month, and then we do a big drawing every 6 months, and that's been pretty popular. Landscape and appearance, making sure that we're beautifying a lot of our amenities and parks, with things that are low maintenance, but still look good. Add the operations specialist that we just kind of talked about, and then add a walkthrough Christmas show for next year. That's something that event would cost us about $100,000 to do it for about 28 to 29 days. We can do it at the sports park, and it's something that ordinarily we would put in the rec fund, which what we've done is kind of split it with the rec fund and the general fund, because we don't know how much money we could generate revenue-wise, ticket sales or anything like that. So what we've done is put $40,000 for that in the general fund and $60,000 in the continue to grow our recreation events and activities. And then we added camps and clinics to our recreation fund for athletics. That's just another element of athletics, small camps and clinics for youth. You can kind of see in the middle there, general fund. So our budget's about 12% higher than it was last year. Most of that's going to be attributed to staff costs. Rec fund is 17% higher, and that's an enterprise fund, but that's going to be attributed to that Christmas event. And then the golf fund is down 26%, and that's below our line. Last year we had a manager and training, so this year we don't have that manager and training, so we just have a manager. Future needs, of course, the indoor recreation facility project we're currently working on. Sports park athletic field remodel. Those fields are 22 years old, 23 years old. It's tip Bermuda irrigated, so there's every field we have really needs to have water injections on, just to help level it out and make it safe. And so that's something I feel like we need to kind of get on the radar. I think that's going to be a large cost to the soccer field and baseball field. Trail system, developing trails into our existing parks, which you'll see at the next council meeting. That's going to be something where our parkland, that's really what we're going to try to focus on with our parkland money, is getting our trails established within our parks so that we can look at state and federal money or other programs to connect our parks. And then parks capital plan, which would be, in a perfect world, it would be $500,000 for upkeep and replacement each year, and $500,000 for new development each year. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
I have questions. Just trying to get someone else a shot. So in the last couple slides back, you had a segment of the budget labeled landscape and appearance. Sure.
Okay.
What is that? Like, what all is in that part of the budget?
Landscape and
I mean, it sounds self-explanatory. I'm curious for details.
Yeah, so it's going to be your city entrances, putting in how many times we're going to plant flowers per year and what the cost is per planting that we do. Downtown, all the planters downtown, mulch. And so it's a minimal cost. However, it's going to grow every year because we want to start getting that into our parks. Park has a little bit right now, but without irrigation, it makes it difficult. So those are things that we're trying to iron out.
Which part of these budgets here would handle or would account for maintenance of facilities?
That would be the general fund.
General fund. Okay. I did have one other question. You said that the fields would need water injections to make them safe. So
Yeah,
I'm curious, are they not safe?
our soil, no, they're safe.
Okay.
They're safe. Yeah, I mean, if you've been on Greenfield, you'll notice that there's about an 80-foot, rise shelf.
Yeah.
It's a shelf, that's about 18 inches high. It snapped all the concrete fence, on Green and all. And so in 2009, we actually had it going across purple, and we came in with a maintainer, took it out, laid the grass, sawed back down. And we have black clay out there, which is
Expensive.
exactly. So, and it was back within 2 months after we went out there. So the deep water injections are supposed to keep the soil stabilized so that it doesn't shift as much. So there's moisture down on it. So, that's and we try to top dress or make sure that we're maintaining air rate, or air fire, top dress with sand, but a lot of that is just our moisture. Making sure that we get moisture deep enough that doesn't heat.
Any other questions? Very good presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, next is fire and rescue. Chief Pat.
Meeting later, council. We just scrolling with the mouse tonight. Perfect. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. It's been a while since I've seen some of you, so it's good to see you. I'll start off with our organizational chart. This chart hasn't really changed much over the last 10 years, other than a couple of years ago we did. You guys passed our inspections captain to help out our fire marshal's office. We got so busy with new growth that office really was getting overwhelmed. So that position has been really good. And kind of what we do there, a new captain, that captain comes in that office, learns that position, and they have the option of rotating back out to shift after 2 years if they want to do that. It's got a couple different benefits other than just helping the fire marshal. I think it gives them a good perspective on what goes on and administration, kind of how we're thinking about things and our perspective that they may not see at the operations level, and then they can take that experience and when they go back on shift and share that with other rank and file. So it's worked out really good. I appreciate that. Some of the services that we provide, a lot of these are probably going to be very familiar. Fire suppression is obviously one. Fire and arson investigation is something that we do that operates out of our fire marshal's office. Also coming out of that office is the fire inspections and code enforcement. That's where we've gotten really a lot busier over the last 5 or so years. And so that's where that captain that we just talked about really came into play and done a lot of the legwork there. Emergency medical first response. Hopefully everybody knows that's something that we do, because honestly that makes up a large majority of our calls. We don't have probably near as many fires as everyone thinks that we do. But on the other hand, when it comes to emergency medical calls and motor vehicle accidents, that's definitely the majority of where we do our business. Some of the other things that you'll see there is technical rescue. When I say technical rescue, that's going to be your high angle rope rescue, stuff like that, confined space rescue, trench rescue. We don't do a lot of those.
You know, over the last 10 years, you can probably count on both hands how many times we've done all those together. But the problem with that is it takes a lot of training and time to keep efficient with that. And so I think we've done a great job over the last, really, it's been 15 years now. If you look back on it, since around 2010 is when we really started putting a lot of focus on being proficient at those. You know, Chief Smith said something earlier that I really hit on probably every year is that we are out on the island down here by ourselves. And so it's not as easy to call Dallas or Garland or all those big departments to get down here. It's going to take at least an hour to get to us. So we try to do the very best that we can to handle as much of that stuff that we don't do every day, but it just takes a lot of time. The less you do it, the less proficient you'll stay at it if you don't do a lot of training. So pretty proud of the guys where they've stepped up over the last 10 years. Another one that goes hand in hand with what I just talked about is hazardous material response. Proud to be able to do that. Really, we do that for the county. We took over their hazardous materials response probably about that same time, I would think, somewhere around 2010-ish. They had some equipment that they weren't using, and we took that over and have expanded upon that since then. So we can't handle everything, but what we try to do there is identify, what our target hazards are for the city of Greenville, and try to mitigate those as much as we can. So, also do emergency management for the city. That's one of the things that I've talked about over the last couple of years that I want to expand on and get a lot more proficient at. And I think as a staff, we're moving in that direction. We're doing some things right now, along with a new facility, just within staff to try to grow that area and get more efficient emergency management for the city as a whole. Along with emergency management, we got community risk reduction. And community risk reduction is something it's not real new in the fire service, but it looks at things more encompassing. It's not just about fires. It's not just about EMS calls. It's about, where are you making your calls? What type of calls are you making? And how can you reduce those? How can you educate your citizens, your businesses, your other customers? How can you educate those people and have them better prepared to just be a safer community? And that's what community risk reduction is all about. We'll talk just a little bit more about that. Also, we're members of USAR, Texas Task Force 1, and we do a lot of work with TIFMAS, which is the Texas Interstate Fire Mutual Aid System. If you keep up with us at all, you've probably seen that word TIFMAS used quite a bit over the last few years with us, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So going back to community risk reduction, some of the things that we do here is we partner with the County Senior Service Alliance, and what that really tries to identify and focus on is fire and fall prevention in older adults. If any of you have had to deal with older adults, you realize, a lot of these people are vulnerable, and so what we try to do, especially if they're living alone, we try to educate them on, how can they be safer? How can they do things safer? Give them ideas of preventing falls. And not only them, we'll try to also educate their families as well. How can you help your elderly adults when maybe you're not around? Maybe you check on them a little bit more, but you can identify some things that will make their lives a little bit safer. So Sylvia's done a great job there. I know most of you know her. And that's really where she focuses. A lot of her time is on that over the last year or so, or 2 years. She spends a lot of time with our elderly population, because we do have a large elderly population. Another program that we do that I'm extremely proud of is our partnership with the Red Cross and the smoke alarm program, where we will come out and evaluate your house and install smoke alarms at no charge to you. There's a lot of people out there that don't have smoke alarms, that don't know how many they should have, where they should have them. And all they've got to do is call our office and request that. So some people don't want us in there, and in that case, we'll just provide them smoke alarms. But the most important thing there is that everybody has an opportunity to have smoke alarms in their house. So, The Swim Smart program, we just completed that a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, that's something we kick off obviously in the early part of the summer when everybody's been active. And we try to educate our citizens. So really it's just being smart around water and try to prevent drownings. And that's not just swimming pools, but that's lake safety as well. And we partner with AMR, the game wardens, they all come out and do presentations over, I believe it's a 4-week program on Thursday nights is when she was doing it this year. And just to educate people how to be smarter around water. The next one there, it's called the law school. I was joking earlier when somebody called the office and asked who wants some information about their law school. Kind of caught me off guard. I was like, you realize it's called the fire department, right? So, but what it stands for, it really goes back to the trying to protect the elderly population. It's another program that Sylvia does, just educating the elderly population and their family about how to live wisely in their older years. Got the senior resource fair that goes along with the same thing. Also, you've got the probably after the fire program is done at the high school annually. And what this is for is it targets our seniors when they're leaving high school and they're going off to college. You got to realize that anybody who had seniors, they're kind of clueless a lot of times on the realities of the world. And so we've got 2 guys in this particular program that they went off to college, burned a dorm, they were involved in a fire, and they really had no clue when that fire happened what to do. And they obviously had no clue what to do then. They didn't have any pre-planning. They didn't really have a good idea of what their surroundings were. And so what this program does, it gets their attention because these guys have severe burns. And so by getting their attention, those guys can share that experience. And we can also share some best practices and say, if you're going to college, here's what you need to do once you get there. Identify where you're at, and what kind of campus you're on, use the high fire sprinkler systems, where your exit is from your room, stuff like that. We've got the Citizens Fire Academy that we do every year, the Youth Fire Setting Prevention and Intervention Program. That program really tries to address, I guess, our young kids when they're young. If somebody identifies that they may have a fire setting problem, or a kid playing with fire would be a great example. Their parents identify that, or maybe somebody at school identifies it. They can bring them to us, and we sit them down and talk to them a little bit. Sometimes it even leads to professional counseling for them and their parents to just try to mitigate that or try to get to a bigger problem. Fire extinguisher training program. This program really is more targeted towards our industrial partners. We go out pretty much on a yearly basis to these industries and just educate them on how to properly use a fire extinguisher. I know that may sound simple, but if you've never used one and you have a fire, you're probably going to be surprised. Most people have it. And so what we're trying to do is get them some hands-on experience before that bad situation happens first. We got 2 different ways we'll go there. We'll do live fire extinguisher, where we actually use a fire extinguisher. And then a couple of years ago, we got a grant for a simulator program where we set up a screen. You've got a simulated fire extinguisher. It costs quite the mess, so it's a little bit cheaper, but you still go through the same methods. Another one we're real proud of is the CPR classes that we provide. So I'm talking too long. But no, seriously, the CPR classes that we provide, that's another one. We started up probably about 5 or 6 years ago and offered that to everybody. We did a lot of business doing that. Probably once or twice a month we'll put on a class to individuals, our local industry, whoever our customers are, whoever needs it. We want to make sure that our goal is 100% of the population know how to do CPR. Obviously, that's right along with those smoke detectors. So something we didn't do for years, and it was a need, and very proud to be able to provide that service. Let's see, and talk about the next one. The one towards the bottom is a new one. It's the residential Knox box loaner program. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the Knox box, if you've ever been to a restaurant or a business or a lower end box, a lot of times by a front door, you probably don't even notice it. But what it does, it gives us, there's one key that we have that will fit every box in the city for business. And so we can go as a fire station, we can go and unlock that box, and inside that box are keys to the business. Whereas in the past, if we've got a fire alarm, if we didn't have a key to the business, we had to do two things. We wait on the business owner if we got a hold of them, or we would break the door down. And so the Knox box, what that does is gives you immediate access to the business. And so we've expanded on that now to a residential Knox box, and it really kind of goes back to where we were talking about our senior adults earlier. We get a lot of falls, you know, a lot of these people live by themselves, their families aren't always close. And so we have the same options here. We have to wait for somebody to get there, or we have to break something to get in. Well, if you've got an individual that requests a smaller box, we can go in there, install that box, and then we have a secured key to their house. And it's the same process, so. Excited to go, and that was all on the grant, so excited to build. So some of the accomplishments that we've got this year, as most of you already know, we closed on the land and the partnership with PJC. And so we've taken that now, we've got that surveyed, and that survey has been passed along to our architect. And that conceptual plan that we gave our architect, they're now putting that, you know, on that piece of property. So we're hoping over the next couple of weeks that we'll have an updated version of what we showed y'all, and we'll bring that once again back to council to kind of give you all an idea of where that's at. So we're really excited about that. Obviously, the land is kind of drag out forever, and we're excited to be moving forward with that project. Also, we're in the implementation phase of our public safety radio system. And we got word, I guess it was last week or the week before, that we finally moved past the FAA approvals that we were needing for our tower size. It took a while for them to get approved, but they are approved now, so we're excited about that. That was a big benchmark for us to be passed, so we're back on schedule there. And going back to TIFMAS, what I talked about earlier, we continue to support TIFMAS. The biggest thing there is that Operation Lone Star, which we commonly call border support. For over a year now, I think we're going on 2 years now, actually. We've been down the border continually, helping with the efforts down there. And honestly, we bring in about every 2 weeks, we bring in anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 back to the city of Greenville because of those efforts. They're basically renting our personnel and renting our apparatus. We had an apparatus that was a reserve that we were going to send to auction about 2 years ago, and it's been making money for the city of Greenville ever since. So it helps us a lot. It helps that truck that you see right there on your screen. It paid for that. It paid for a lot of our support vehicles that we have out there in the fleet. And I just can't say enough about the effort everybody's putting in to do their part and to continue that operation. Because, you know, you're two weeks away from your family at a time. You know, that's not always easy, but the guys that continue to do it, and they see the benefit of it as well. And along with that operation, we continue to support hurricanes come through. We'll still go to those if needed, and we continue to support the large wildfires that we see out in West Texas. And just like we talked about earlier, or I mentioned earlier, that brush board we were able to replace, and it's been in town about 2 weeks. We're still outfitting it and getting our decals put on it. And as soon as that gets ready to put in service, I'll bring up to one of the council meetings for all y'all to see. So, very proud of you. You might have already seen it running around, but still not in service. Talking about our calls for service, I'll be brief right here. You know, we've seen a large increase over the last several years, except for, I guess, in the last 2, there wasn't a large increase. We've kind of plateaued out a little bit, which is good. But I think it's important to remember, like I mentioned earlier, a large majority of our calls are a result of EMS and MPAs. That's really where we do a lot of our work. That hasn't changed. That's been that way for quite some time. But those numbers just continue to increase. Here's one that the biggest thing I want to show you here is over the last 10 years, I think if you look at the call volume up in the top right-hand corner, the call volume has doubled over the last 10 years. And, so I think that's a direct reflection of how much busier we're getting as a community, how much we've grown as a community. Your calls for service are going to increase. So we definitely feel it. We're a lot busier. It's a lot different fire department than it was in 2006. This is just kind of a breakdown of our different divisions and the expenditures that you can see there. I won't go into it too much. Feel free to ask questions when we're done, though, but you can see the steady increase. Really, a lot of the increase is just due to personnel costs going up every year. We really don't buy, well, inflation obviously affects us a little bit, but we do our best to control that. But at the end of the day, roughly 9% of our operating costs are personnel costs. So that's what's going to affect us more than our capital request for this year. We're asking for generators at all 4 of our stations. Those are going to be about $50,000 a piece. Another one is the AED replacement. If you don't know what an AED is, it's if somebody goes down and having a heart attack and their heart is in an irregular rhythm, that's what you put on the shock and try to get that rhythm back to where it needs to be. And so ours are getting to the end of their service life, or they are at the end of their service life. So we're going to replace those hopefully out of this year for about $60,000, is what that would cost us. And our big ticket item, I guess, down there at the bottom is our fire training officer that we're requesting. Personnel is always the most expensive, but along with the new facility that we're looking to build, we're hoping to integrate that fire training officer into the design phase of it and try to get ahead of the game, not build a facility and then bring that personnel on. We want them to be an integral part of that design phase, planning how we're going to use the building. How are we going to cooperate with our outside agencies and get that program ready to go whenever the building's ready to go. But that's I know it's a lot of money, but I think it'd be well worth it in the end to get ahead of that. With that, I think y'all have any questions? Please ask questions. If you got it.
Chief, I'm just curious about your manpower situation. Is that satisfactory?
We're very fortunate, yeah. We're doing really well. We've had a couple just retired, but that, it's nothing. It's just normal. So we've got a couple spots open right now. And even though we see numbers, I'll just give you an example. When I used to test, I see 300 people show up for a test. Our last few tests, we might have 50 show up. I will say we've been extremely fortunate. Out of those 50 that show up, we still get, the 1 or 2 good people that we need. So not ideal, but we're still able to recruit good people. So I guess that would be the most important thing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate everything you're doing.
Do you see any need for any blocking vehicles being on interstate? I just keep seeing that more and more.
Yeah, you do.
The safety of our.
We've talked about that over the years, and I won't say that's not a bad idea. When we got rid of our platform, that might have been a great time to keep that particular vehicle for that.
Yeah, I just think something that isn't fully outfitted, if it were to be hit by someone that doesn't.
The platform would have been,
lights.
it would have been a good vehicle for that. It is something we take into account. It just, one of the things that we are doing this year that you didn't see up there is a program. I guess like if any of you guys use Waze, you know how they alert you, maybe a car on the side of the road. So we've got in our budget this year for a program that will, whenever we activate our emergency apparatus, our lights, that it not only tells us each other where our apparatus are, but it also gets those particular softwares out there. Lets those people know, whether that's going to help or not, who knows. But it kind of goes back to trying to do everything we can to alert people where we are. And maybe that's the one thing that helps. They're certainly not slowing down.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
It's, that was an excellent presentation. I'm, very impressed with all the presentations and all the services that our city provides. I wish our citizens were here, more citizens were here to hear, the full range of services that we offer. But he was really very impressive. I seem to forget sometimes how broad our scope is. How many touch is really impressive. So, the next thing on the agenda is item 2B. It's our goals and objectives, and that's a placeholder this time. Just, if you would, look those over, and we'll discuss them at the next meeting. And these goals and objectives are used to guide us in our decision making, of course, for the budget and that sort of thing. So some would like to get those. Let's try to finalize those at the next meeting. We'll take some time to discuss it. If you have suggestions, be prepared to bring those at that time. And we'll do that. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay, I think everybody knows the drill. And item 2C, city council subcommittee assignments. I'll make those assignments, but you have preferences with regard to some of the committees you either served on, but continue to serve, like to continue to serve on, or would like to serve on a new committee or whatever. We have, of course, Philip here, who will need to be assigned to some committees. He's not here tonight, but think about that. If you have some preferences, contact me, and make sure you copy the city secretary so on his email, and I'll try to find out those committee subcommittee assignments this next week or this next meeting. And so at this time, we'll go into executive session, and we'll be back at 6 o'clock.